game over?
Is it over? They lose?
I think we're gonna get ready
We're not
to
gonna talk about it.
go
Let's
to
move
first.
forward.
Okay.
I'm just start preparing
I
for
have a couple of
anybody.
cents.
Hey Christopher, how you doing? Hi Ricky. I appreciate you guys for joining us. We're gonna get ready to go live. I was just checking my notes, everybody. Tonight's show is called The Script.
That's not a blowout I
I have an amazing
expected.
panel of actors in the house tonight.
Hi.
Siobhan St.
what quarter?
Clair, George
It's a
Reister, I have Jeremiah O'Brien, and the lovely Jessica, last name,
Di Giovanni.
Di Gio.
Di Giovanni.
It's
The
German.
lovely
It's
Jessica
true.
Di
No, it's not.
Giovanni. Di Giovanni. If I don't get it right, that means you'll find my head to cut off, that's why.
You ready, Jackie?
We're getting ready to go back in, guys. Woo! I just want you to know that you are really special. Welcome back to the Poetry of Justice show with Jackie Ray Phillips on YikesRadio.com and AccelerateRadio.net. Now you know here on the Poetry of Justice show, this is where social consciousness meets the earth. And we generally select topics that spark the interest and awareness of social diversity, ranging from arts, entertainment, and social justice at large. But here lately, guys, you guys have been on a roll with me. We've been hitting some pretty dense subject matters. Particularly last week, we spoke a little bit about sacrifice. So this week, we have a team of amazing actors in the house, and we are talking about an actor behave. So we're going to hone in on our artistic side of the Poetry of Justice show. But we're going to tie in a little bit of the social justice aspect at the top of this particular segment. So some of the questions that are going around is going to touch my heart, you know, one of my passions, which is the criminal justice world. So we're going to throw around a couple questions. And nothing too hardcore, I promise, you know, but just something to think about. We're going to spark the interest and awareness here. So that being stated, I know we talked about subjectivity when it came to talent. George and Jeremiah, I think pretty much everyone on the panel almost agreed to that philosophy. But what I want to know now, specifically, I'm going to start with Siobhan St. Clair. And I would like for you to tell me, if you can, okay, I'm not going to get too dramatic, maybe 10 words. What does social justice mean to you?
I think social justice is a deliberate and focused effort towards equity. I think that we've moved beyond equality, wherein, you know, that we're all reaching for the same thing, when now we kind of realize that we all want a stake in what we already have. I think that we want to buy and we want a percentage of whatever this world has to offer, be it money, be it artistic property, intellectual property, be it real estate, whatever it is, we want a piece of that, and we want to be included in what we've all built, some more than others, but what we've all built.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm gonna tell you what I'm thinking. You think what I'm thinking? George Jefferson, when you said a piece,
Exactly right.
because if George hadn't had that car accident and got that
Right.
insurance money,
Yeah.
what if
Yeah.
he'd have just sat on that insurance money and just bought a couch? And he said, you know, we're
yeah.
gonna do some basic upgrades around the career. What if they had done that? Him and
Absolutely.
Weezy would still be fucking stuck next
Exactly.
to Archie's complaining.
And that's equality,
Yes,
right?
okay?
Right. He
I'm
went
just
for
saying, I
equity,
love
yeah.
Archie,
He
because
went for
without
equity.
Archie, there's no George.
Right.
But George said, F that.
Mhm.
I got this little 10 grand, I got beat up in this car accident, and I'm gonna do something. Because
Exactly.
I think about O.J. Simpson. Okay, y'all don't beat the shit out of me. I think about O.J. Simpson when he gets that ball and he runs and he never looks back. I'm thinking specifically the conversation between O.J. and Johnny Cochran when the time comes for them to go into trial.
Right.
And he sees O.J. and O.J.'s completely defeated, right? And he asks him, have you forgotten who you are? And these four walls in this jail does not change who you are. And your ability to get that ball, and when you have that ball and you run it and you're never looking back, what that means to so many people. And I understand it, I'm just being honest, this is just an analogy that's coming into my head, but taking that same analogy and kind of running with it, that no matter what is in our face, no matter what the obstacles are, we have to try to find the greatness within. And I think that's what we talked about in the subjectivity portion on the first half of the break in terms of what talent is to each and every one of us. Who is that person who's watching us, Jeremiah? Who's saying that, you know what, this audition is great? Who is that person that's listening to that tape, Siobhan, that new one that we're getting? Who has that final say?
Yeah.
Does that really matter in who you are, Jeremiah, can you say?
Oh, no, not in who I am.
Yeah.
But what matters is what I do every day, because character is action, you know, and in fact, because we're talking about acting, the definition of to act is to do, right? And so to act, I believe as an actor, you know, you're kind of rehearsing, as it were, your character all the time, right? That is to say, character, and not just a character that we would create as actors, but you mentioned sacrifice earlier. I think like to be an actor and to be an artist requires tremendous sacrifice. I mean, you're hopefully you haven't gotten into this gig to be rich. You know, that's a sacrifice right there. But then time, hours, etc. But there's so much of a sacrifice here. And then kind of dovetailing that with social justice, I would say that one hopes that when one gets at whatever level that's at, that when you have a platform, that you would use that platform to create balance. You know, I think my definition of justice is balance, and there's a lot of imbalance, right? There's a lot of inequality, and that goes back for centuries in this country. And so, how does one balance? You know, and so that. I mean, maybe some people would see that as an extension of the art form, or maybe some people see that as separate. I personally, it's hard for me to disentangle the person and the artist from me, you know. But that's my perspective. So I would say that this is a fantastic vehicle as well. Again, at any stage in your career, to use this as a platform for social justice and positive change and balance, creating balance.
Can someone on the panel speak and tell us why? Miko, I want you, if you can, and then we can have the panel, we can run it to the panel, but just talking about how to ask you. Miko, can you tell us why, for being a historian in the office tonight, the blending of acting and civil rights, if you will, or Maya Angelou, you got all of the greats. Do you see where I'm going, Jessica? There's some kind of hand in hand with this artistic side of us, and we have a passion for community and to help others and to, go ahead.
Well, I basically think because of poverty and because of a lot of situations that people of color are forced to be in due to the systemic world we live in, poverty creates art, and it's as simple as that. So a lot of people who are in situations where they are not able to provide for themselves or be heard or be seen, culture just is emerged from that period. Poverty will breed beautiful art, and if we're just talking about American acting, for example, those who are just culture in general, art in general, music, if we want to go into like digital art, like anything, it comes from people who don't necessarily have a voice, and they use art. If we want to go with theater acting,
Yes.
they use that art.
Let our listeners know.
I didn't know. I wasn't.
You took a course.
I took a course in theater, but that's not why I did it.
No, I'm just saying that you're not just pulling out some shit out of your ass. You have some, you know what you're talking about. You've experienced it, that's all.
Yeah.
That was
I'm sorry.
no, that was.
The CPT and me.
Yikes.
Yeah, but yeah, that's basically my perspective on it.
So you're telling us again that poverty equals art.
Poverty creates or drives art because that is a way that people can express themselves to those who are not and will not hear them.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how the Harlem Renaissance plays into that? Because when you said that popped into my head.
Well, I believe the Harlem Renaissance kind of starts from when the Great Migration happens after slavery ends, and a lot of people from the South are moving into urban spaces like New York specifically. So they go to New York, you know, they have their own ethnic enclaves in Harlem, and a lot of things are happening, right? You have drugs are a big thing, gambling, gangs, all of those things are happening at that same exact time. The Great Depression was around that time. The 20s had just left because, of course, that was when America had like the strongest economy. All of those things play into why I believe like the Harlem Renaissance was what it was. It's another thing as well. People are coming from the Caribbean, bringing their work over as well, and a lot of things are just mixing. A lot of ideas are mixing around. Black people are finally being educated to have the opportunity to express themselves.
Speaking of Josephine Baker.
Yeah, Josephine Baker. We can go with Langston Hughes. We can go with Zora, my girl. There's so many people. Elaine Locke, like going just a whole large list. All these people knew each other, right? They live in the same area. They're experiencing the same trauma. So therefore, they create art based off of that. And they communicate, they collaborate. All of those things come together. However, maybe they may not have understood that their art would have been monetized, and they of course did not reap the benefits from it. But that's how you know it was really art, right? They made it because they felt it was needed to be like put out there. It wasn't with the intent of I'm doing this so I can make money.
Yes. The intent. I think you spoke earlier about Siobhan.
Intentions.
Right. Where are you going with this? I see some complex lists. George, where are you right now?
No, I agree with her when she says poverty does create art and it does drive art. Being from the South, being from Memphis. And I think back about the history of art and music just in my hometown. When you look at the fact that, I mean, I knew where Isaac Hayes lived. He lived in the same neighborhood as some of my friends.
I see where DJ Quick House, you know where Isaac Hayes lives?
I know where Isaac Hayes lived. Al Green.
Shut up, Al Green. Shut up.
Yeah. You gotta remember, I was 8 years old when Martin Luther King was killed at the Lorraine Hotel, which was only a few blocks from where I lived.
Wow. What was that like, George?
Oh, it was awful. I mean, the
What
whole
was the
city-
energy like?
The energy was saddening at the same time. An energy that you can't describe. You have to be there to see it. The Barcade.
Shut up.
My mother went to school with Maurice White from Earth, Wind and Fire.
That's what I'm talking about. We got
So we got some. I mean, history in my Beale Street. I mean, I performed on Beale Street. I've been on Beale Street many, many times.
I knew you was special. I didn't know that's what it was.
So when she says that, I understand it because I was in a culture and time that I didn't even realize the capacity of it
The impact.
and the impact growing up in it. I was just in it.
Yeah.
So so you see these people, you get to know these people, and you get to experience what they were experiencing, not even understanding the magnitude of it. It was so large. They was just people to us, and it was just a moment in time. And there were some great moments in time, and there were some terrible moments in time. And then I happened to marry into a family where my wife's sister married a guy named Darrell Withers. Now, Ernest Withers, if you saw 60 Minutes a few years back, was the first black police officer in Memphis. Not only was he the first black police officer in Memphis, but they had an investigation saying that he was also an informant for the CIA.
Oh, wow.
He was also he was the NAACP's official photographer.
Wow.
So once he passed, he left a legacy of millions of dollars of photos that were in the civil rights movement, and some of it's stored at Iron Mountain now because it's so valuable. And they have, right next to the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, is what's called the Withers Collection, which is their extension of the Civil Rights Museum. So, I mean, so my life is just so crazy. I mean, so many things have happened which have put me and given me a perspective, you know, on life in general. It's just crazy. So I get what she's saying, and I've seen it firsthand.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. We have some big names, the Barcade. Remember the Barcade?
Yeah.
Of course.
Stax Records, you know,
Yeah,
Stax Records.
exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Just
All out of Memphis.
you and social justice, how did you go together? What does it mean to you?
It's important. Siobhan, you said that so eloquently and beautifully. Like that, I'm just gonna second what you said. I think it's you know,
You're gonna be our
equality for
official writer.
equality.
You're gonna start writing for the table.
Yeah, right,
Yes.
right.
Instead of being the red table, it's gonna be the brown table.
The brown table.
The black table.
I mean, I think it's important because I think art appeals to deeper than, it appeals to your emotions. It appeals to people's, what unifies us all, I think. You know, something, you paint something on a canvas and there really aren't words to describe it, but it gives you a feeling. And guaranteed everyone else is gonna have a feeling when they look at that painting. And that's a universal language. And so I think art is essential to social justice because I think it brings us together. But it also can create dissonance. Like
Yes.
I participated in, I was very active in 2016, 2017 in New York when everything was going on, and Eve Ensler was doing a show at Manhattan Theater Club, and one of the people who was working there asked me if I would perform the vagina monologues in front of Trump Tower.
Yikes.
And so we performed the vagina monologues in front of Trump Tower as a protest, and also a
Super
statement of, you know, resistance and persistence, and it was great. It felt there was a real unity there, but there's also a lot of anger. So art can also stir up things.
It can.
But I think it's important. We need to have conversations. We need to listen to each other. We need to cultivate more compassion. I think art allows us to do that. And art with, you know, social justice focus can do that. And if you're open, you know, to something like the vagina monologue, it can give you a different perspective that you didn't have
Look
before.
before.
Right.
Exactly. Well, that is definitely what we do here in the Poetry Justice Show. Let's be free. Amen. Amen. YikesRadio.com. Okay, so we cannot talk social justice and art, in my opinion, in these days and times, without going across the panel and weighing in a little bit on Siobhan St. Clair. What do you feel when you hear Nipsey Hussle?
I think that's what happens when you have a leader within a community that gets taken a little too early, but their death sparks a movement, and their death sparks change, and it brings about an awareness and a personal sense of self-worth, really. I think he inspired so many people who looked up to him to continue his legacy, which the slogan is the marathon continues, but in whatever that marathon is for you, just keep running it and being not only steadfast and dedicated to it, but making sure that you document every moment of success that you can along the way in doing so. I think that's what Nipsey did. He just woke up, not necessarily woke up, but he strengthened, I'd say, and he made purposeful a lot of people's intent and action going forward. You know, personalize it doesn't have to be artistic per se, but I'm sure a lot of artists, a lot of rappers, writers, poets, spoken word artists were really galvanized when he passed, and we're now experiencing right now, going to be in the next couple of years, seeing what comes of that, the fruits of his untimely and unfortunate death, but there's the positivity that can come from that.
George, when you hear words, Nipsey and Hussle, what comes to your mind when you heard the news about his?
Well, see, Nipsey is a few generations from connecting to my generation. So, of course, it's saddening. Anytime someone's life is taken too early or just at all, it brings on an effect of, you just want to say, when is it ever going to stop? When is the mentality and mindset ever going to stop that we, out of anger and disagreement, can choose to take someone else's life?
I mean, you being so close to the culture, being raised right there in the civil rights movement, everything you spoke of, what was that impact like growing up? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's a thing of, here we go again. Here we go again. That same pain, that same anger, that same feeling of disappointment, especially in the black community. I mean, how much longer are we going to continue to hurt each other? It seems like there's no end. And, but we have to stay strong, we have to stay hopeful.
Yes.
And we have to keep educating, teaching, training, and inspiring those in our community, and those of us that are around us, to strive for better.
What about you, Jeremiah? I know we're a little dense, but we're gonna lighten it up, I promise, so we can't have a discussion.
Well, I agree a lot with what Siobhan said. As well, I think, not to repeat, but, you know, to really seize every moment that one has to, you know, to really be able to, maximize every last second you have in the day. You know, like I've had a few near-death experiences in my life, and they've really taught me the value of pushing it, squeezing every last drop out of a single day. And I think that's a great example, you know, and hopefully an inspiration for others to do the same. So when you feel uninspired or dejected or depressed or that the obstacle is too much, that maybe you can look to some sort of inspiration and say, oh well, you know, that person did a lot in the few years that they had, you know. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. What about you, Jessica? I know we're gonna lighten it up, I promise. I see your face. We're gonna lighten it up a tad bit. But yeah.
Oh, I wasn't smiling before the camera came in, I was like, no, I think, you know, it's funny, I was actually listening to an interview with Father Greg Boyle, that Jeremiah had actually introduced me to, not literally introduced me to him, but his work, and he works a lot with Homeboy Industries, and he was talking about Nipsey Hussle in this interview, and just how he was proud of the work that he had done, and that, you know, it is a shame, and it angers the community, it angers everyone really, and it you know, to what George was saying, that what do we do with like this? Is this going to keep happening? How do we change this? How do we stop perpetuating the same cycle over and over again? But I think, you know, what he was saying was just to continue with that work and to continue to shift it into a positive direction and continue to get outside ourselves and be of service to the community and, you know, learn from that. And yeah, what everybody said on this panel, everyone's been so articulate. This is just, I feel very fortunate to be a part of this,
Of course.
this show. It's been really
We're having a good time.
Yeah.
Awesome. Miko, what do you think about Nipsey's early demise in terms of how it plays into the Black community and any change that you can see from a historian perspective?
Well, my understanding of Nipsey, it's the idea that we always say, like, once you get money, like, don't leave your hood, don't leave your people, don't abandon your people. So he was one of the first people I can honestly think of, you know, to take his wealth of riches and knowledge and every spirituality, all of it, and share it with his people. He was a man who was not fearless. He was not in fear of anything. Like, he was very accessible. If you needed to get to him, you could, as we can see, which is, you know, a way that he, part of his death. But one thing I really understand and learn from him is that if somebody takes you off this earth, they can't take away what you left.
Your legacy.
His legacy is nothing can take that away. No one can take that away. Although that man had the power to take away his life, he took nothing but his physical human body. He didn't take away anything that he did for that community. He did take away, of course, opportunity in the future to cultivate and make it bigger, of course. But it's just like kind of like a downfall. It's not fair to say, like, wow, like, don't stay in your community, leave. Because how Snoop Dogg was like, you know, I wanted to stay, you know, in my community and stay there, but people were just trying to pull me back down. So he left. And with this man, we're like, no, we want a leader who's going to stay in it with everybody. He stayed in it, and he was accessible, and people got to him. So it's like, what do we want to do? Do we want somebody who's going to run and not help and be themselves and say that they're doing things for Black people and for the cause and for their community? Or do we want that person who's actually going to stay, be a part of it, put their hands in the soil and do the work themselves, and then criticize him and his lifestyle and the people he's put himself around? It's kind of like a catch-22. It's not necessarily fair, but think about with Malcolm X. His own people got him as well.
Absolutely.
That's the way it is. Sometimes in the internal, we can go politics, we can go in any world. Your own people can be your demise. They can pull you
Frenemies,
down.
right?
Your own frenemies, the people who you think are like-minded, that you have put yourself around, that you try to grow with, try to teach, all of these different things, they can get you. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that your impact will never leave this place.
I think that goes back to what we were talking earlier, panelists, with regard to subjectivity in terms of always doing your best. And I'm thinking about Miguel Ruiz Luis were the 4 agreements.
Oh, yeah.
And one of those being always do your best.
Yeah,
And
always
moment
do
to
your
moment, our best is going to be different, moment to moment, depending on how we feel.
And get better.
Right?
Because if you're constantly doing your best, then your best is gonna get better. Kind of like going to the gym, right? Like
Right.
if you're taxing that, or you're stressing that, then it's gonna get better and better. But I had a thought, then it left me. I was gonna say that.
No, but when we're talking about doing your best, and that's subjectivity, when we talked about talent, what is talent to each and every one of us as an artist or a performer or your actor? What is, you're doing your best, and at that moment, when you're at the audition, I think that's where I feel the majority of my anxiety, is at the audition mode, because you're like, I'm like, these people are watching me, and they're right there, whether they like me or not is gonna matter whether I get this role, and then what part in this am I gonna get, you know what I'm saying? And for me, that has been like the most nervous thing, where you're just, and then I had to wonder myself, why am I doing this to myself? Like, why am I doing this to myself? And then once you get the part, and once you got the role, and you're like stoked, and you're learning the lines, and you're putting yourself into the character, and all that jazz. And then, yeah, opening night, and you get ready to jitters, and you're saying, why do I do this to myself? One of the guys was telling me on set, he said, well, that lets you know you're still alive. That anxiety, that lets you know, I got it, I'm ready to go, let's do this, like, lift off. But I think those are the moments where we do our best, right? We do our absolute best, and hoping that that person that's on the other side, who's watching me and listening to your words and how you present it, whether or not you're gonna be casted, is it their best?
Yeah.
So going back to the 4 agreements, right, it's about dreams and reality. And at that moment, we're sharing that dream right now, this dream, this reality, we're sharing together.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I went on to that tangent about the 4 agreements, which we always have to do our best. And success, well, talent is subjective. But I don't know, did I pose the question to the panel about success? I have on the list
Not yet.
here. What is success to you?
Oh,
Success.
do you want me to start?
I would, John.
Oh, okay, sure. Success to me in my field, I think. Let me back up and come at this from a different angle. I think I think maybe any person has to define what their purpose is, and so I had to find what my purpose was and is, and that's to be service of others. And so for me, success is being in service of others on whatever stage or set or venue that I'm at, and I'm in service of others, and this is the particular path that I've chosen, acting and entertainment and theater, TV and film. And so I use that as a means whereby to serve others. And so if I can do that, then I'm successful. Of course, we have to pay the bills. We have to, feed ourselves and clothe ourselves, and hopefully leave some kind of impacting legacy behind. But for me, that's not my definition of success. Winning Academy Awards and Tonys and things like these, they're fantastic acknowledgments of how your peers recognize your work, and that's all great. But I also acknowledge that's not everybody's dream. It's a lot of people's dream, but also that's not necessarily the definition of success, because to be a multimillionaire in this career is to say you're a small fraction of people. And there are many professionals that belong to SAG-AFTRA and Equity who are unemployed at any given moment and are not making a single dollar, and Are they unsuccessful? No, I mean, they're still a very competitive elite group who've gotten into the union. There's so many people who haven't even gotten into the union who want to be competitive, real performers. But, so I would say, you know, everybody has to define that for themselves, but for me, it's to be in the best, for agreements, the best version of being in service of others that I can and make an impact in, you know, on day to day. Cause, you know, we're not promised tomorrow, so I stick to today, you know?
I like that.
Yes.
What about you, Jessica? Let's talk about success. Let's get you at the top of the
I
pile.
love these questions. You're crushing it.
You're crushing it.
You really are. I love this because it's really making me think and go back and.
Spark the interest.
Yeah. I think if you had asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have said making money at what I love to do, which is acting and, you know, working all the time and being sent scripts and all of that. But the older I get, the more I'm starting to define success as how content I am in my life and my relationships to the people in my life and what is important to me. And I think what's important to me is how I affect other people. Like, I've been thinking a lot about when I leave this plane, what is my legacy, right? Like what, how will people remember me? What will people say? How, and you know, there's that quote that says, people, when you leave this earth, people won't remember what you did as much as how you made them feel or something like that, right? And so I think that that's been a realization I had this year, is that I think success to me is making people, I'm getting like a little emotional, making people smile and laugh and feel joy, because God, life is so fleeting, and I really think that we should enjoy it as much as we can, and if I can like bring joy to people's lives through comedy or whatever, or loving them in the way that I know how to love, then that's, I think, is success to me. And if I make millions of dollars doing it, I wouldn't be upset about it.
The Siobhan St. Clair, you and the definition of success. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Well, I would say that success for me is dedicated fearlessness and conscious happiness.
Dedicated fearlessness and conscious happiness.
What that means is that I get up every day, and whatever I do is without fear. It's without apprehension. It's without anxiousness. Is good. I think anxiousness, but it's without restraint. Nina Simone has this quote where somebody asks her, "What is freedom?" And she said, "Freedom is fearlessness." So that dedicated sense of fearlessness every day, I think, is success to me. And conscious happiness. I think life is such a, it can be shitty at any moment. It can be messed up at any moment, but it can also be happy at any moment. It's a volatile situation, breathing.
Really? Well,
It is. Breathing alone is a real volatile situation, of just being consciously happy, even just choosing happiness and being aware of happiness and taking the moment to reflect on happiness. It's real easy to remember the last time we had a shitty moment, but we'll have to take a couple seconds to think about the last time we were happy. So consciously keeping happiness at the forefront of my mind. So if somebody asks, when was the last time you were happy? I have an answer to that question. Even if it's, I just ate a taco and it was
Right.
fire.
Right.
Something
Delicious.
happiness.
Delicious.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Siobhan. And of course, George, success
Success.
to you.
Two things I use to define success for myself. One is creating a legacy for my family and my friends. The other is finding what makes me happy. If it makes me happy and I love what I'm doing, then I feel as though I'm successful. Because I remember a time when I used to be so considered what everyone else thought about my success, and I wasn't so much concerned about how I felt about my success. Because opinions, as much as we try to avoid it sometimes, they matter. And if we don't have a good conscious thought in how we handle those opinions about ourselves and from others, it can be defeating. So I've always I'm all about just creating this great legacy for my children, my grandchildren, my friends who I'm in an environment with, the people that I'm in a circle with today, that I'm at peace with what I do. So I feel successful. Yeah, just being here with you guys, I feel successful.
That sounds great. Frida Ross, I want to get you in on this with regard to success.
Come on, Frida, you got some philosophy for us today. I
Yeah.
know this.
No.
Come on, you can share my mic if you want to.
Okay.
Alright.
Let's start with two
This
things. First,
awesome
Frida, tell us
actor.
about your storytelling event with GPE and with Lori Ray. So your acting abilities came out there, my darling.
Her name is not Lori. Her name is Ava DuVernay.
Ava.
She's a beast. Okay, what does success mean to me? That's a very good question, and I would say 20, 30 years ago, I would have said success for me, what it would have meant to me then would have been to, by this age in life, have made a whole bunch of money, you know what I mean, somewhere, just soaking up the sun and, just doing all that stuff that really has no importance or no significance in life, I think, Today, however, to me, success is being the most good to as many as I possibly can be. It really is. If I can take a client and I can swindle my organization out of enough money to furnish their whole apartment, I'm successful. You know what I mean? That person is very happy. It's no longer about me. And that in itself, I think, is success. You know what I'm saying? When you can just really just get outside of yourself and be centered on the needs of others. That's success to me. That's very important to me.
That was similar to Jeremiah. With that, in terms of the service of others. And of course, to the lovely and highly educated and one of the most respected women of my lifetime, of course, my sister, guys. Hi, guys. We got a little bit of tingling here. But I have utmost respect for my sister, Lori, Ginger, Ray, Phillips. She's my big sister. It's just the two of us. And I love her with all of my heart. And she is a leader by nature. When we were little girls growing up, we had the most amazing, I would say, I had a really great child life. We really did. It was almost like similar to like our gang and Little Rascals. We would come up with our own little, we would make up our own little toys and our own little cars and we would just have the best friggin' times. But anytime we would have, I'm gonna give you guys a story about the dispute. You know where I'm going with this one. So we had a little dispute on our street, right? My sister had this old bike, and it was called the Rust Bucket. We named it the Rust Bucket. So the Rust Bucket, it was good though. You get good in a race. She was good in a race. You could always depend on the Rust Bucket in a race.
The Rust Bucket would win.
Always. And
Wow.
so Lori decided to sell the Rust Bucket. So Lori decides to sell the Rust Bucket to our neighbors. I'm going to say their names, I don't care. Terry and Larry were our neighbors. They were like one doors down from us. And so Terry and Larry decides to get the Rust Bucket. And so Terry, the younger sister, at this time I'm like 10, which would probably make Lori, well, you were probably like 12. Yeah, because you had just started at Davis. When she got to middle school, she cut us off free. She didn't have shit to say to nothing. So she was probably like 13, so that would make me like 9 or 8 or 9. And so Terry was probably 7. So Terry has a little accident, a little fender bender on the Rust Bucket. She runs and she hits this other girl's bicycle, and remember a little Amira. And she dropped a little mirror, dropping her little bike fell. Terry ran into her, so now Amira's bike is now damaged. So then Amira wanted to get compensated for the cost of her bike.
Oh, wow.
Terry and Larry were in dispute. This is brother and sister. That no, she was the one who caused the accident, and it's her fault. And then they wanted reverse compensation for their injuries. So of course, who do we take this matter to? My amazing sister, Lori, Ginger, Right. Lori would be the type, if she's not the leader, don't even come to the porch asking for her. If we playing lawyer, she is the judge. If we're playing school, she is the teacher. If we're playing the house is on fire, she's the fire chief. So that would be why she's the benefactor of the Poetry of Justice show with Jackie Ray Phillips, and I love her dearly, and I don't do anything without her. What is your success? I think like Frida said, if you were to ask me what success meant, maybe 15 years ago, I would have had a really different answer. I thought it was about how much money I could make, or how big my house was going to be, or all of the gadgets and gadgets I could buy for my children and places, right? But after living and seeing some things, and what the old people used to say, you know, I've become a member of that club, is that you gotta live a little. And so now, I had to realize that I have to write a definition of success first. Because each definition of success is very personalized. I did a research study when I was doing an undergraduate degree, and it looked at definitions of success as it relates to people of color, right? So I could be, you know, the manager at the neighborhood Rite Aid, and I could be super successful depending on where I started from in that race, right? But if I started much further and the only place I made was the Rite Aid, is that fair, right? So I learned that we have to define our individual definitions. And for me, success is the ability to touch other individuals and to really be able to, as Frida says, meet them where they are, understand their need, and to help them with that need. Because as Jeremiah says, it wasn't until I understood and accepted my purpose. And I truly believe that God has put me as a purpose to be a catalyst for helping. That's when I'm happiest. That's when I'm in my element, is when I'm helping. And it doesn't have to matter what I'm helping you with, necessarily. Whether it's getting Miss Frida Ross to really do her monologue, and to reach down and find some place to connect to it. Or if it's about helping a teenage mother who didn't finish high school in a normal way, get her GED and apply to the University of Southern California, and get admitted and graduate, right? So I think for me, looking back, it's that success. And as you say, George, it's leaving a legacy. And I think I am one of the richest people in the world. Because my sister and I raised, now I'm getting emotional with this. We've raised our children as community children, right? So my nieces are my daughters, and my daughters are her daughters. And to look at them and to say, they all are okay. They all are okay, they're self-sufficient, they're respectful, they're knowledgeable, and we were a part of that. You know, we created that. So I think when you live a little bit and you look back, success is not equated to money. You know, it's not equated to things. I think it's equated to experiences. And that's what life for me boils down. It's a series of experiences, right? That make you feel okay, that make you feel proud, that make you feel happy. Sacrifice, yeah? Sacrifice, yeah. We make a lot of those along the way. Look at the time, YaksRadio.com, everybody.
Wow.
We've got about, 3 minutes? I even got Dante immersed in this, Laura. You are captivating, my queen. You have a good time tonight?
I had a beautiful time. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out and playing with us today. I had a wonderful
Jessica, what about you, lovely? Did you have a good time? Would you be willing to come back and
Oh
hang
my
out
God,
with us here?
yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. It's important. It's important to have these conversations.
It absolutely
You know,
is.
and thank you for holding a space and a platform for us to do that.
Yay. What about you, Jeremiah? You know, you're just
Oh,
grandfathered
you-
in.
You know,
Regular.
I love it here. And I put this in my calendar so that way I can block out that time every single Saturday. So unless something like, critical comes up, that I could come here and be here and be part of the discussion if you would like me to.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course.
No, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Whitley, how you doing over there tonight, beautiful? You doing good, princess? You gonna start acting now? You gonna come on set? She cool. She don't shit we was on
None of
right
that.
now.
What about you,
None
big
of that.
time? How you doing, George? You know how much I love and respect you and honor you. Did you have a good time tonight?
I always have a great time coming here, and I think about you and this show so much. I watch when I'm away, even though I may not call in, but because I'm on the road, I travel sometimes. But you are so inspiring. You are a queen.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I am
You're
so
so
happy to be here. And just everyone that you bring on the show, that when I'm here, oh my God, you learn so much, and you search deep. You really start to think, and you start searching deep about the topics that are being discussed without judgment or guilt. And so that's good. I love this show.
Yeah.
George will be back for our Power of the PUSSY show.
Oh, yeah.
Can I come back to that?
Yes. Talk about vagina Myers.
Oh, wow. Good job.
Siobhan. Did you have a good time tonight? The Saint Yvonne, Saint Clair, Siobhan, Saint Clair. I love you, Siobhan. You know
Thank
it.
you.
I'm so
I'm
extra out,
impressed,
huh? Hi, Miko. How you doing tonight, mama?
Girl, I'm good.
You doing? You good skinny now?
Yeah, I'm feeling real skinny.
Skinny.
You feeling real skinny? That's Miko. That's our code word when she tells you. Divalicious.
You make me sick. I love you so much.
I love you.
Listen, one of my friends on Facebook, I just wanted to put this out there because I like that, and I think that this is what you strive to do all the time on the show, right? Lucky Daniels says, "Thank you for energizing my spirit."
Thank you. Thank you for the appreciation. Thank you. Lord, when I be stressing out and getting on your damn nerves, see now it's worth it, Lord.
It's so worth it.
I drive her crazy behind the scenes, guys. You wouldn't even know why she's still here with me. I just want to say thank you, everybody, for listening. What's next week? The ladies of the chat, guys.
The ladies of the chat. Tune in.
YagsRadio.com. Thank you so much for tuning in here to the Poetry of Justice show with Jackie Ray Phillips on Yikes Radio and AccelerateRadio.net. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back. Night, night.